Greetings, friends. This is Pastor Craig Johnson from Christ Lutheran Church in Aurora with our midweek devotions and update on congregational life at Christ Lutheran Church. Welcome. Today we begin with our midweek devotional reading, which is the assigned lectionary gospel text of the day. This is a good Easter reading from John 21 about the appearance of Jesus to the disciples by the Sea of Galilee. John 21. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. And he showed himself in this way. Gathered there together were Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of his disciples. Simon Peter said to them, "I am going fishing." They said to him, "We will go with you." They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, "Children, you have no fish, have you?" They answered him, "No." He said to them, "Cast the net to the right side of the boat, and you will find some." So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because there were so many fish. The disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on some clothes, for he was naked, and jumped into the sea. But the other disciple came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, only about 100 yards off. When they had gone ashore, they saw a charcoal fire there, with fish on it and bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you have just caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153 of them. And though there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." Now none of the disciples dared to ask him, "Who are you?" because they knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. This was now the third time that Jesus appeared to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. The Gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So many sermons on this particular text I've had. I know that the Synod, when we were doing our vitality work, used this image of the disciples fishing and the church fishing these days, and wondering why the things we've always done before don't necessarily work, and that sometimes we forget to invite Jesus to direct the fishing that we're called to do in his name. But the scene that comes to my mind when I read this text, and just the ordinariness about it, is the idea of breakfast on the beach, fish and bread. I remember it's been almost 30 years ago. I led a youth group on a Habitat for Humanity project along with United Methodist Church in Smith River, California, just south of Brookings along the very northern coast of California. The tribe that we worked with was called the Tolowa, which was one of a very, very, very small tribe, maybe about 1,500 members, and we did some home reconstruction work with the Sierra Service Project up there and Habitat. And when we were done with our project, they invited us to a traditional fish bake out on the beach. And someone had made a fire on the beach out of driftwood, and it was the first time I'd ever seen redwood used for a beach fire. It was beautiful and kind of different looking, but fun. And they set a beautiful fire, let the fire turn to coals, and pulled out some salmon that had been not too much longer before in the water. I'm not sure if it came from the coast itself or from the Smith River, but beautiful salmon were placed on a fire along with something they called stone bread, which was a simple bread similar to fry dough that was placed in the rocks and cooked on the rocks, and had been a traditional way of having a celebration at the culmination of an event. And its simplicity and its welcomeness and the community that was there, as some of the elders from the tribe told us the story of their history, about how they were an important trading spot between natives of the north up by Washington, the Makah who were up there, and all the way down the south, and that so many things that had been ordinary in their lives involved trading of culture and so forth. But what I remember most was the feeling of welcome, the feeling that this is what they did when they celebrated a birthday or an anniversary or something of recognition. We celebrate a simple meal with bread, and not fish necessarily, but wine instead, in remembrance of Christ. And we haven't had communion together as a congregation since March 8th, and some of you have expressed, and I've been feeling a longing, hoping that this COVID thing would be just a time by which we could fast from communion and get to enjoy it together soon. But the council and I have decided that we've waited long enough. So we're going to try and experiment with having the words of institution and the service as part of our video message for this Sunday, May 3rd. So we invite you to get some bread and some wine or grape juice and make a small home altar. And after the message and the prayers of the church, we will have a Eucharistic prayer and the words of institution. And we will invite you to share communion with one another via, although it's electronic, a way in which we can celebrate both the normality and the abnormality of this time. The idea, I think, that Jesus chose the simplest of elements, bread and wine, to be the way in which we did this in remembrance of him, the way in which the means of grace came to us through simple elements common to so much throughout humanity, is something to be celebrated this Easter season. This abnormal time seeking to do something a little bit normal. So we will give that a try, and we'll get some feedback from you. Look forward to having this meal, a foretaste of the feast to come, with you on Sunday. A few announcements. Our courier will be going out this Friday, and both electronically and physically. And there'll be some information about this communion process that we're going to be starting on there too, as well as some other updates about how our feeding programs have been going and our work within the community. And our council highlights will be there. So our council did meet last Thursday by video, and Mutual Ministry did too. We're doing as much as we can, starting to expand our work electronically where we can. Thank you to all the volunteers. Thank you for all the prayers that you lift up. Please continue to remember Evelyn Carlson in your prayers. She was diagnosed with COVID-19 last week, was in the hospital, but has been sent back to her care center. Family says she's a little bit weak, but would appreciate prayers. They're going to do some visiting by window, which I guess is what we do these days during this time of separation, especially for nursing facilities, to keep our elders safe. Be kind to one another, be good to one another, remember one another in prayer. This is Pastor Craig Johnson bidding you a blessed week during this Easter season. Christ is risen, he is risen indeed. Amen.